Hey all, welcome to the Hal and Hav show. The only problem is we don't have Hal. I think Hal, last I checked, Rocky, I think he's on the French Riviera looking for a $20 billion listing. So I don't know. So instead of Hal today, we have a great friend of mine. His name is Roque Castro, or Roque Castro as we like to call him. He's with Compass, and he's going to be our guest today. And we're going to be talking a little bit about foreclosures. We'll be having a special segment at the end of the show. So as we always start our show, Rocky, tell us a little bit about what you do, what you got going on, and
well, first off, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Well, Hal's doing big deals in the French Riviera. I came to hang out with you for a little while, so that's awesome.
Perfect.
So, I started my career in real estate back in 2005. I started working for one of the large mortgage lenders. Worked there for till 2007, more or less, when everything crashed, as we all know. Led my way into real estate. When I got into real estate around 2008, I worked at a couple different spots, ended up at EWM, local agency, and linked up with a team who needed an agent to work the foreclosures at the time. And that was kind of my segue into the markets and, building my database, building my inventory and everything else. And, went into it full steam ahead.
And away we go, as we like to say. So that's one of the reasons we're going to be talking a little bit about foreclosures today, is because you do have a good sense of it. But we always start our show with a very, very simple question. So we always say, what did you learn in real estate? Because even if we've been here forever, we've been on the market forever, every week we come up with something. Every week we see something different. So we always start a segment. So any insights for it? Got anything for us?
I mean, listen, you know how this business is. We learn something every single day. But there is something that's tried, true, and tested. And I think that is who you work with matters. I am a part of a team. I've been working with a team now for a little bit over a year. I've always gone through different teams, but this one is a good friend of mine who brought me along when she decided to open up her, build a team, which was B Citron and her daughter Jenna. So we're part of Team Citron over at Compass.
Cool.
But when I talk about who you work matters and what I learned in real estate, I just finished a transaction where I had advised the client to work with a closing agent that I had that I always work with. They chose to go with somebody that they knew. And there goes the disaster, the chaos. It was two transactions, no communication, no anything. So it was just another way to just reiterate the fact that who you work with always matters. Who's part of your team matters, whether it's the mortgage person, even the realtor on the other side. It's who you work with matters. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I can tell you that I learned this week.
I think one of the points you bring up about having people on your side, and we've talked about this in several shows, is that you don't realize what we do and what we go through to get transactions closed. And like you said, when you have somebody that you can talk to, that you have a relationship with a comfort level. And I think that really makes the transaction so much smoother.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really a good takeaway. It's not like we try to push people. A lot of people say, oh, you're trying to push this lender because you got some kind of deal going on. No, it's just that
the job's going to get done. And that's what's important, right? Not getting looped out of emails, not being communicated with. I have to chase people down to get answers. Even my client was chasing this person down to get answers. And it makes everything more stressful for everybody, especially when you're dealing with large transactions as, these two were. So, again, who you work with definitely matters. And I think that was my takeaway for this week.
That's a really good takeaway. So go ahead, ask me. What did I learn?
So what did you learn, Javier?
Chaos. Always chaos. So I learned that we can do stuff while we're not here. As long as you have feet on the ground or boots on the ground, just about, team aspect. I work just with my one associate, which is Ashley. And knowing that you have somebody here, you really can do a lot of stuff while you're away. Simply because you can prepare for it. And even though you're always going to get something that's going to, be a hiccup. But we can actually, prepare and get through the days, even while we're not here. Hence why Hal is in the Riviera doing his thing.
Doing the big deals.
Doing the big deals. And so I think, that was one of the takeaways. And then the other thing is, and you brought it up just a little while ago, when you have an agent on the other side, that is a pleasure to work with. We just closed the deal in Access. And I can tell you right now that the agent that I worked with was the easiest going transaction that I've had in quite some time. People that do not put roadblocks on the way. They're always going to be there and cover and clear the roadblocks. And I think that's something to be a successful agent. I know that you've done it. We've done deals together where we cleared hurdles. is that you know that the thing's going to happen.
Right.
And everybody's going to, that stress level that you mentioned, it's
Right.
not going to be there.
Problem solvers, not problem creators.
Exactly. And you know, to solve a problem that didn't exist.
Exactly.
Those drive me absolutely nuts. So yeah, so that was my takeaway this week. That, you know, again, if as long as you have somebody around, that you can actually get some stuff done from far away. So let's get to the topic that I think a lot of the folks in the audience really are interested about, because there's been conversation that we're going to have this foreclosure boom because of COVID.
Right.
And I know that you have a lot of experience with it. And I think it's important for the audience to understand really how foreclosures kind of go down.
Sure.
The kind of some couple of step-by-steps. They don't realize that it's not what they think it is.
Right.
When they see something on Zillow, when they see something on the MLS, or they just see an REO. So why don't you take it away? Lead in, keep it as simple as we possibly can in a super.
You said the bad word, Zillow, right?
Exactly.
Like that's there's a lot of confusion when it comes to how they process and how they put things up on their website. I think first and foremost, when you're on a website like a Zillow and you see their filter of foreclosures, you're not necessarily looking at a property that is a pre-foreclosure or coming out on the market and so on and so forth. And let me distinguish that, because there is a difference between a pre-foreclosure and an actual foreclosure. Right. Foreclosure means it's gone through the process. Pre, obviously, means it's in the process. Right. But what happens is that on website, they pick things up from websites like Miami-Dade Clerk of Courts or different other websites where they pull in information. So those pre-foreclosures can be anything from list pendencies on condo association fees, mechanics liens, contractor liens, whatever that case might be. Well, if there's a mortgage on the house, it doesn't matter what they do. They're just trying to get their money in the long term and make sure that once that person sells the house or gets rid of the house, they get paid, right?
Yeah. If I can jump in, because you mentioned something about mechanics liens, and a lot of folks don't understand that when you pull a permit, if you pull a permit in Miami-Dade, which is another conversation.
That's another conversation for another day, right?
Exactly. We can have that one for another. But what happens is you get a notice of commencement, and that notice of commencement is what actually lays down that lien on your property. Because what happens is that there are two folks that are going to get paid, like it or not. That's the IRS.
Right.
And then any kind of mechanics liens, because it's seen as an improvement of your property.
Correct.
So when Rocky talks about this mechanics lien, a lot of times that shows up as a pre-foreclosure.
As a pre-foreclosure, because there was a dispute between the two. One doesn't want to pay. The work wasn't done exactly to their liking. So there's always things that happen in that situation. And with the condo associations, it's people that can't afford the condo association dues or haven't paid them, have also dispute with the condos. So all of those things take place in that situation. And then when Zillow picks that up on their website through the pre-foreclosure side of it, it doesn't mean that property is going to be a foreclosure. I've gotten the phone call, hey, Rocky, help me out. I see this property is coming up as a foreclosure. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. It would be nice, but it's not how it works. So there's a little bit more of a process that goes with that. The other part of it is that in today's world, the foreclosures I will tell you that what I've seen as of late is, and we're at a 12-year low when it comes to foreclosures in Miami-Dade County. Right. We were at one point,
a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people still think that there's this market out there, and we have not seen it. Go back into detail. You talk about that corporate level, that institutional. If you can touch base on it, because I don't think a lot of the viewership gets that.
Well, I think you have big funds. Right. BlackRock is the perfect example. Everybody hears about BlackRock all the time, but like BlackRock, there's other companies out there that are buying these properties. The banks don't want to put foreclosures out there. They don't want to be the bad guys. It's for them, it's their last resort, right? When they have to go through the full-on process and evict somebody. For them, it's probably a lot easier, foreclose, pass the title off to somebody else and let somebody else be the bad guy, right? Because it's not a good look, obviously, for the big four to be doing those things. So when you got BlackRock coming in, they're buying a lot of properties, and they're not even just buying on the foreclosures. They're buying essentially, we list a property, all of a sudden an agent comes in, and it could be a BlackRock agent. No, we'll give you X for the property, and you end up selling. They're cash deals, they're quick closes, very little inspection periods. So you have a lot of that takes place. But a lot of these corporations, these funds have been gobbling up whatever inventory, or you can say distressed inventory, that's been out there. So that's obviously taken us down to where we are today, which is a 12-year low in foreclosures. I believe we're averaging about 40 to 50 foreclosure sales a month in Miami-Dade County. That's
just a huge county.
That's a huge county. It accounts for basically 1% of all sales. So 1% of all sales is a distress / REO sale. So what does that mean? They're very difficult to come by. Are they there? Absolutely. In fact, our team just called me the other day because they were writing an offer on a foreclosure property. So on what we call an REO, right? A real estate owned. So they called just to get a couple of ideas as to what they needed to do. So we are writing them, but again, they're so few and far between that it makes it very difficult. And then the other factor I think is important is that when people hear the word foreclosure, they feel discount, right? Yeah. That's what it is. It's a fire sale, right?
Oh yeah, that's the key.
And so I think that in the past, yes, that was the case. I think that 07, 08, 2010, and so on changed that dynamic, right? These banks want the most amount of money for these properties, the ones that do put them out there. They get appraisals, they get our BPOs, our broker price opinions. So they have a good amount of understanding of what values are and what the numbers are. Not to mention, some of these big banks have guys with MBAs sitting in the back, plugging in numbers on spreadsheets, and they know everything about everything. Yeah. So I do think that the idea and the mindset that the word foreclosure means discount has changed. I don't think, if you look at a lot of the pricing on these foreclosures, they're selling pretty much at market value. So there is, and then on top of the fact, you don't know what you're getting, right?
Yeah. And also you're going to be competitive anyway, because you're not the only one that's going to be looking at it. I use the example that I do foreclosures or REOs for a small lender, and we've probably done about 10 of them.
Right.
And every time, something that you mentioned, every time they had an appraisal on the property, they would call me and say, Javi, I need this number. This is my number. This is my threshold number. Anything. Yeah. And you have to make it happen. And I think to the point that you were making, these folks see out there, REOs, foreclosures, and these properties have been munched through, analyzed, run up and down the pole, sold, all sorts of stuff that they don't get an idea of what's going on. And I think that's one of the, I hope that's one of the takeaways, from today's show, that folks understand that it's not what you think. Go to the courthouse step right over there. Go to the courthouse step, fight it out, and see what happens. And you're going to be bidding.
And you don't need to do that anymore. You can do it online.
And you're still bidding against your bank.
Yeah. And typically, if they want the property back because of whatever reason, they'll be able to take it back. Yeah. I mean, I've seen it. I have people that have called me over that. I don't know the system of the foreclosure through the auction process. That just never got into that, and I was like, I'm good. But another thing to understand too, so some of these properties, they come out on the market, and I'm glad you brought up auctions, right? Because I think another difficult thing for people to swallow is the fact that it's listed. Well, I submitted an offer. Well, no, your offer doesn't get submitted through there. You got to go to this site and you got to put it in through this site, and then you got to wait, and then you got to see. And then sometimes if it doesn't meet the reserves, right, because they priced it low thinking it would bid up, and if it doesn't meet the reserves, it goes right back and your offer gets kicked out and you got to resubmit it. Well, there's nothing more frustrating for a buyer to miss out on something, to then have to redo it, to then miss out on it again, to probably miss out on it 5 times, to then realize, okay, what's going on here? And especially in a market like what we have today, where time is of the essence and you got to be quick, on something.
I think the takeaway is going to be that it's just not what you think it is. Yeah. It's just, and then if you do see it on the MLS, if it is on there, that thing has already been priced, processed, and everything. And it may be a deal for a couple of bucks, but it's going at market value.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk a little bit more about what do you see in the short sale market, because that's something that we can see as a pre-foreclosure.
Yep.
And I haven't been seeing a lot of them. I made a little offer on one recently, really to tear it down and to build. It's a little old duplex. But I haven't seen that. And then to lead into the conversation, do you feel that it's going to be more properties coming on the market later on in that system? I don't think so. I mean, I haven't seen enough of that out there. But have you seen any kind of short sale movements? Anybody?
Sure. So when I looked at the numbers and I kind of crunched them, I saw that there was basically, it was a 75-25 split between REOs being the 75,
75.
and the short sales being the 25. So if it's 1%
Yeah.
of REOs,
That's
then
even-
it's a little bit less of short sales. I don't know. I would think that there's going to be some.
Right.
I think that people that haven't been able to recover from COVID financially, whether it be that they couldn't find a job,
Right.
or have to move because the jobs are somewhere else, whatever the case may be, I do think that there will be some. I do think that banks rather work with individuals
Right. Yeah.
versus go through the process. I don't think they want that
Right.
attention that they got back in 2007, 8, and 9.
So do you think that would open up a little bit more of the short sale market?
I think so, to some extent. I think a little bit, but I don't. Again, I think it's going to be so minor that it's going to be tough, right? And a lot of these deals, are hard to come by, and sometimes agents already have buyers for them,
Right.
and that's the reality of the way that the business works. So.
You mentioned BlackRock earlier, and I remember
Mhm.
like in the foreclosure crisis in 8, 9, and 10, we had I had a company out there. I think it was Home. They were out of Orlando. They had like
Mhm.
$30 billion in,
Right.
in assets, and they were buying anything that was at 300 grand.
Right.
And it didn't matter where it was. And if it was
Yeah.
300 grand, you got the offer immediately,
immediately.
and then you had 5 different agents working for the same company. So you
Mhm.
had the 5 agents making the offer for the
Yeah.
same people. It was absolutely
It was
chaotic.
chaotic.
And again, I don't think a lot of our listeners and our viewers really understand that a foreclosure market is actually very, very difficult.
We're one of the prime markets for those companies because we're considered cheap by standards compared to California, New York, Texas. We're the cheaper ones, as far as our values go.
Right.
So a lot of these companies see the ability of how much can the city continue to grow?
Right.
Where is it going? And like I said, these guys have very smart individuals working on the backside that know how to forecast a lot of things. So they see things 10 years, 20 years down the road where, let's be honest, we're seeing things a year to 2 years, right? There's a big difference there. So, they definitely know what's going on, but I saw a lot of that because I used to get the offers too. And I remember that very well.
Let me ask a question. I don't know if you ever did this or if you ever got it. Did you ever have do pre-foreclosures in the sense of monitor properties, like a vendor, a bank said, listen, or an institutional buyer said, listen, we have these properties that we are in our possession, and that you had to maintain them or had to go out and they used to pay you X amount of dollars to go take a look at them?
I didn't. What would happen is that I used to through the platform, I used to get the assignments.
Right.
And I would get the assignment, and the assignment basically was going and checking if anybody was living there, making contact with the clients, and so on and so forth. They didn't pay us for that because we would then get the listing and then sell the property. So once that was there, and as long as we took care of it, as long as we reported and did our MMRs, our monthly marketing reports, and our monthly BPOs and everything else, the property would stay with us. So I did have to do it in that sense, but I didn't get paid extra for it. It was just part of the process once I would get those properties. Unfortunately, it became a time where a lot of people were fighting their foreclosures, especially once, we started off with a lot of the low end properties, obviously the 50, 60, 100. And then slowly we were able to work our way into the luxury REO market. The luxury REO market, unfortunately, wasn't as stable because people would fight their foreclosures, and all of a sudden you were ready to list a property, and then somebody would file a lawsuit, and then that property got taken away, and it went back either to the owner or to somebody else. And it was, it was a little frustrating because, there was a lot of properties there. And so, but
I brought up the conversation because I remember when that was going down, I had a company reach out to me, and it was like 30 properties that we had to keep an eye on.
Okay.
And you had to go out there, on a monthly basis and everything. And at the time, it sounded like really interesting because you got 30 properties that are going to come into your fold. And who's going to turn up 30 listings?
Nobody.
So, but then it got a little bit more exciting because you realize that, some of these listings weren't going to ever going to happen. And then, I had people moving in to places that like you're looking at and said, no, this person gave me, cash for keys, the old, Craigslist scam. And you felt bad for him and says, you have that. I had a car drive through one of them. Through the thing, so it's like, what do you tell somebody? Hey, by the way, your house just fell, and the guy, they're coming out of Seattle. The company was out of Seattle.
Like, what happened?
Yeah, exactly. What happened? I don't know. It's Miami. Things happen.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting that we have that conversation again. I don't want to go that route again.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it was like I think I got 2 or 3, and then it was like, okay, guys.
Listen, I have friends that work for some of the bigger REO warehouses, and they had to pay for everything. I mean, they
Out
were
of pocket?
out of pocket, and
And then you would
sometimes you
hope-
wouldn't get refunded for a certain amount of time. It was, I mean, look, that's a lot. And thankfully I was a part of a team, the team can cover it,
Right.
and that was
Yeah.
fine. But we didn't go that route. I mean, and there was a time where I think I had added up to like close to like 100 properties into the database, because I would just accept.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't care. I was by myself. I was like, accept.
This is the job.
I'll figure it out. And it got hectic, but it gets expensive.
People don't realize that we put out money and ahead of time
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that things happen. I mean, I paid just recently, and it wasn't a lot of money. It's $500.
Yeah.
But I had to cover an AC repair.
Yep.
Before the closing. The other day we're doing a closing coming up, and the washer dryer, when we did the walkthrough, the button's broken. It's not a lot. It's $150, but it's still, you got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to cover it. So I think that's one of the funny parts about it. Tommy, how much time we got here? Do we know? We got 5, 10, 13, 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, whatever we want. All right. So we don't even know where Hal is. All right. So one of the topics is, I think we got like 10 more minutes. So what's really important? The heck with real estate. The heck with foreclosures. Short sales. We don't care anymore. So, I know you're a big Dolphins fan.
I am.
So am I. I mean, I've been following them. I'm old, by the way. Rocky's a lot younger than I am. So I've been following them since like basically 1969, when I was old enough to understand what the game was like.
So you actually were around when they won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
I
was there. Oh, no. I was there. I actually watched. I'll tell you some stories. I'll actually watch O.J. Simpson run for 200 yards.
Okay.
And this was before he was running from the law, but he was running for 200. This was like 1971, 72, right? 71?
Yeah.
So I remember the Orange Bowl was the Orange Bowl. It was amazing. I remember that the strongest arm, everybody talks about all these strong arm quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers and stuff.
Right.
If no one ever saw Burt Jones throw a football, Burt Jones was a quarterback for the Colts. By the way, the Colts back in those days were in our division.
Okay.
So we played them twice a year.
I remember that.
It was the worst games in the world.
Right.
All right. And yes, we saw a lot of great games in the Orange Bowl. And so we've been following for a long, long time. So we've gone through a lot of ups. We've gone through a lot of downs. We've gone through a lot of just mediocrity, just bad staffing, just bad. And that's the thing about football people don't realize is once you're in that level, your draft picks are always going to be 18, 19.
Yeah.
You're good enough, but you're not good enough.
Either you find the best GM that knows how to draft better than anybody else to get you out of that mediocrity, or you're stuck.
Or you do a complete rebuild and you throw everybody out and you say, you know what, we're going to start again.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the Dolphins this year? What do you think they're going to do? We talked about this offset.
They look interesting. I like Flores. I think Flores is probably the best coach we've had in a long time, right? I think since Jimmy, I think definitely we can definitely say that Flores is the top guy. This league is all about quarterbacks, and they took a risk, I think, on Tua, and I want to see what he does this year. Right. I think Tua is he is the centerpiece of the team. I mean, there's nothing of the puzzle. There's nothing you can do about that because it is a quarterback driven league, right? Unless you're the Tennessee Titans,
exactly.
Then you can plug Ryan Tannehill and just run Derrick Henry to the ground, right? Which we won't get into the fact that Tannehill has an opportunity to win a Super Bowl before, which is crazy. But absolutely. We won't get into that.
No. But receiver turned quarterback.
Yeah. So I do think that they've done some good things. I think that they've given a lot of pieces to Tua. I do think that they failed on one, and that is giving him a running back. Obviously, Derrick Henry is a once in a lifetime guy, but I would have liked to have seen something come out of that draft to help him out in that regard.
Right. I see. So what I saw, and going back, from the years, is this is the fastest team that I have seen.
I agree.
Especially with the Dolphins.
Right.
We used to have a saying that the Dolphins, you got picked and you got to put on the black shoes and all of a sudden you became slow. So it is the fastest team that I have seen. And I think the way that you're talking about, the NFL league is that now everything is quick hits, slants. I remember when we played sandlot football, one of our best plays was a crisscross because nobody could cover it. So you used to run two crossing patterns and you knew you lost somebody over and somebody was going to be wide open. Yeah. But you see all of these guys running back. By the way, this takes me back to the first guy that drove us crazy as a Dolphin, and you can look him up. When the Kansas City game, when we won the longest game ever, and we kicked the field goal, there was a guy by the name of Ed Podolak. And he was the first of the slot receivers. And if you want to see what damage he did, this is going back 1971, 72. This guy drove everybody crazy, and he was a slot receiver. But I think that slot position, I think the way that these guys are running and the speed that they're running, I think that is really what makes a difference. And I think that's going to help two out.
I
You don't
agree.
want to hold the ball,
Right.
especially in this league. You can't hold the ball
Nope.
that long because they come at you. I think the offensive line is going to be a lot better than most people.
I agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. I think they added pieces that they needed, and I do think that that's going to be a huge help. I think obviously having Waddle, in that slot, area and that speed that
and
he brings.
And they have Wilson also coming back, and he's supposedly been doing very well also.
Right.
So I think that's going to be a big help. And then I think when you look at, I played quarterback way back. I mean, way back when we used to like run the veer and stuff like that. Even though I will tell this story, I think I was the first RPO quarterback ever.
Okay.
Just 1979, we had our junior senior game. I played at Gables. I sat the bench. I was horrible, but I did get to hold for Al Del Greco. If you remember, he was a kicker for the Tennessee Titans. That's my claim to fame, folks, in football. But one of the funny parts was we used to have a junior senior game, and we ran a play which was a 46. Which was a 46 is we optioned the end. Back in our days, we played the option. We ran the single tee.
Right.
We didn't throw the ball. That was against the law. We didn't do a shotgun, so you took it off the tee all the time. But I remember that we ran a 46, and the 46 is you optioned the end, and that was very rare because the quarterback couldn't get to it.
Right.
So all of a sudden, in the junior senior game, which was the seniors playing against the juniors, and that was the only time I got to play, is we ran the 46 with an option pass, and everybody's like, "Oh." So you got out there, you ran the 6, you ran it at the end, pulled it, you read the end. If the end cracked down, you rolled out. But then instead of reading the corner, you were breaking a pattern. So I was first of the RPOs.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's at least I'm taking credit.
I didn't know that.
No, I'm taking full credit for it. Now, going back to the offense, if you're an offense, now you look at the defensive side and you see that Flores is building a defense to combat a fast offense.
Yeah.
So he's got all of these players that are multiple position players. So what's your take on?
Yeah, they're a lot of hybrid guys, right?
Yeah.
Like that is why they love the guy like Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
But granted, I get it.
He's holding out again.
Yeah, I know, and apparently we have a tough time keeping people around.
Absolutely.
Obviously with what's happening with Xavier, and hopefully he'll come to to grips with what he wants. But
we'll talk about that one at the end.
Yeah, but I do think that he's building pieces. I do think that he's doing the right things to get this defense to where we need it to go. And listen, to me, I think people underestimate a coach's ability to manage a team and keep a team going. I think Flores has showed that he's a player's coach and he's willing to fight for his players, obviously, as we saw against the Bengals last season. And so I do think that helps drive it a little bit more, where I do think in the past our teams have kind of just been like, okay, whatever. And they just go through the motions. You lose a few games and then that's it. I do think, though, that the key to the season is going to be in our first 5-6 games. I think that is the key to the season.
If we do it,
because we do have we have an easy schedule,
right?
I
don't think so,
but it's not that easy,
no.
Right? Because I do think that all of our division games are tough nowadays. I think our division is just getting better. All
right. So on the really quick, because I think we got to wrap the show up. X, does he stay or does he go? Do they go? There's no I in team.
If we get Tunzel picks back,
he's gone.
He's gone. Bye. See you later. But we need to get a Tunzel type of trade going on here.
All righty. So again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is going to be on demand also. And again, if you are looking for some decent real estate agents, Hal is in the French Riviera. Is that where he's at?
On some yacht.
Rocky's with Compass. He's a great guy, and I'm okay at what I do, but I've been giving it a go. So again, we want to thank you. Any last words?
No, thank you for having me.
A pleasure.
Every time Hal's somewhere else,
you got it.
I'll be here.
We'll talk football. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Take it easy, and we'll talk to you soon.